Hey everyone, today we're gonna take a look at the Star Wars Black Series Cobb Vanth Deluxe action figure from the Star Wars The Mandalorian TV series. So here is a quick look at the box. At the top we have a window to let the light in. On the bottom, some product information. Down to the side, it's a nice artwork of Cobb Vanth holding his helmet, and in the backdrop we see the Tusken Raiders as well as the Krayt Dragon, a great reference to that Mandalorian episode. On the back of the box, we have a more zoomed in picture of Cobb Vanth as well as the description of the character, and finally more product information at the bottom. And down to that last side, it is the rest of that open window. So let's go ahead and get the figure open. And out of the packaging, we see the action figure, and he comes with a rifle, a pistol, his helmet, as well as his jetpack. First up, he comes with a pistol that's cast in the black plastic. The shape is very reminiscent of the revolvers used in cowboy movies. There's a scope sculpted at the top, and some detail down the sides. That same detail and care is also on the other side of the pistol. He holds the pistol just fine in his right trigger hand, and you can also slot that pistol into the holster on his belt, and it's really quite a snug fit. Next up, he also comes with a rifle, and this is also cast in the black plastic. There's white paint for the wraps down the barrel as well as on the pistol grip. Also cool detail down the side of the housing, and there's also a scope at the top. You will also see the same sort of detail on the other side of the rifle. And of course, you can get him to hold his rifle in both his hands as well. His jetpack is reused from the Deluxe Boba Fett action figure with a couple of subtle differences. The jetpack attaches exactly the same way with two flat pegs as well as one round peg onto his back. The connection is quite secure. Comparing it with the Boba Fett jetpack, the sculpt is exactly the same. The blue plastic is about the same tone. Where there was silver paint before, these are now painted in an off-white. The yellow is now more a mustard shade. And of course, the silver weathering is also on different parts of the jetpack. And there's a large silver stripe across the middle of the jetpack. The projectile head is also different. It's now shorter with a more snazzy paint job. And of course, if you wanted to, you could also swap those projectile heads. The flame effect parts that came with Boba Fett do also fit into the thrusters like so. And lastly, he comes with Boba Fett's helmet. It's exactly the same sculpt as the one on Boba Fett. And you can fit that helmet onto his head. Since it's the same sculpt as the Boba Fett helmet, it doesn't fit so snugly over his head. And on some level that actually makes sense, because this helmet was actually meant to fit Boba and not Cobb. Putting those two helmets together, and you can see the same tones of green plastic as well as the maroon down the front of the visor, plus the silvers down the sides of the helmet, and even down to the orange over here. The paints are exactly the same. The only difference is the silver weathering pattern that's all over the helmet. Just doing a quick 360 just to have a look at the two helmets. And once you come down to the right side, you will see that the rangefinder also still comes down, just like on the Boba Fett helmet. However, this time the whole rangefinder is actually painted with silver paint, while the one on Boba Fett just has bare metallic looking plastic. Coming to the sculpt of the figure itself, he's made up of mostly new parts, but there are of course some parts that are reused from Boba Fett. But I must say that the whole sculpt and assembly of the parts is a very faithful representation of Cobb Vanth from the show. The reused parts on him are of course that armor piece, including the shoulder pads, his wrist gauntlets, as well as his right knee pad. Zooming into that head sculpt, and I think Hasbro has done a phenomenal job. The likeness to Timothy Olyphant is fantastic. He's got a steely, determined gaze on his face. The shade of paint for his hair as well as his beard is spot on. The rest of the features on his face are using that photoreal digital printing technique. So this ends up looking amazing, almost like a custom painted piece. There's even subtle lines on his forehead just to show his wrinkles. And the paintwork for his eyebrows as well as his eyes are super sharp, even down to his lips as well. So I am definitely really super impressed and blown away by this head sculpt. Moving on to his torso, they've also given him the right accessories with his signature scarf as well as Boba Fett's armor. His shirt is also the right texture, with the small dimples in the fabric, as well as the folds in the baggy sleeves. The belts are also the same colors, with that strikingly painted buckle piece for his orange belt. Comparing with the armor on Boba Fett, the armor on Cobb Vanth over here definitely has more aggressive wearing on it. That same wear and tear is also seen on his wrist gauntlets. This time the attachment over here is painted in silver, compared to the black one on Boba Fett. But because it's only a hit of silver over here, it actually looks less interesting than the one on Boba Fett, which has black, gold, as well as silver paints. Taking a look at his shoulder pad as well, the insignia is still there, except that it's bigger now, and there's also some wear and tear on it, surrounded by more silver paint for the wear on the shoulder pad. The top of his shoulder is also filled in over here, and this is where Boba Fett's cape would have attached. Moving down to the back of the armor plates, I only start to realize that the green paint over here is a lighter shade compared to Boba Fett. He's also missing the ribbon design element over here, and where it's attached, you can see that there's a small hole at the top. And coming down to that right arm, once again more silverware on his shoulder pad, but this time his right gauntlet has a different wear pattern as well. And also those connecting tubes from his right gauntlet are now connected to the armor in a different way. It goes all the way up on the outside, while on Boba Fett those tubes were actually going into his sleeve. And now we come back to his lower body, and comparing the sculpt and paint on his legs to the show's outfit, there's plenty of attention to detail over here. Even right down to those spare cartridges on his right thigh, the patchwork of his pants, and even a white tool that sticks out of his pocket. The sculpting of the flaps and straps on his boots are also well replicated over here, so I'm really impressed with how all this attention to detail has come out in the sculpting of his lower body. I will however say that this lower body is mostly unpainted, especially on the pants and boots, so it definitely would have benefited from some more paint applications, like for those spare cartridges, as well as some weathering on his boots, in order to bring out more of that detail. Moving down to the back of those legs, it's also mostly unpainted, but likewise there's also a lot of sculpting detail for the folds in the fabric of his pants as it comes down to his boots. There are also those straps to show how his leather boots kind of are put together. And coming to that right knee pad, it is also the same sculpt as on Boba Fett, except now it also has less silver paint on the outside, but also more aggressive wear and tear on the front. Onto articulation, and his head has a double ball dumbbell joint at the top of his neck, as well as one more ball joint at the bottom. So this means you can spin his head sideways, looking around. There's very good sideways tilt as well once you utilize those ball joints. And he can look down quite a lot with his chin going into his scarf, as well as up pretty well. He's got a subtle butterfly joint at his shoulder, so you can wiggle it forward and backward. He's also got a swivel hinge at his shoulder, so you can bring his arms forward as well as backward, and they do come out that far. The shoulder pad over here is flexible, not really hindering his arm coming out. He's got a swivel hinge at the elbow, so you can bend his elbows just about 90 degrees, as well as also articulate his arms, swinging them outwards as well as inwards. There's also another swivel just below that elbow, so you can turn his gauntlet whichever way you want. He's got a swivel hinge at his wrist, so you can spin his wrists sideways, as well as articulating them inwards, as well as not much outwards because of the hindrance of that gauntlet. On his right wrist, he also has a swivel hinge, but this time it articulates down as well as up because of his trigger hand. He's got a mid-torso ball joint that's very well disguised by that armor overlay, so you can twist his torso sideways. It's rather tight. You can also get his torso to tilt sideways. There's a little bit of forward range and slightly more backward range. He's got ball joints at the hips, so they come out quite far. They also move forward but not much backward because of that sculpt on the back of his pants. There's a thigh swivel, so you can swing his legs outwards as well as inwards. There's also another swivel over here as well as a hinge, so you can bend his knees just about past 90 degrees, and you can also swing those legs outwards as well as inwards. There's no calf swivel even though there's a boot, so there's a slight missed opportunity. And over here he's got ankle tilt upwards as well as downwards, and finally ankle pivot outwards as well as inwards. Once you get him outfitted with all his gear, he looks awesome even in a simple vanilla pose. Definitely just as awesome once you get him into a pistol drawing pose, just like his bar entrance scene. And because his gauntlets are exactly the same sculpt as Boba Fett, you can also borrow that flamethrower effect, and this looks really cool. Now I just want to talk a little bit about the price point of this figure. Cobb Vanth comes branded as a deluxe figure and is packaged in a larger box. He also comes in at a slightly higher price point compared to the regular Star Wars figure. That price point is the same as this deluxe figure Boba Fett. However, Boba Fett comes with a whole bunch of accessories, including the really impressive blast effects and flame effects. Despite Cobb Vanth having a phenomenal head sculpt, and the sculpting and painting work on the rest of the body is about on par as Boba Fett over here, I just feel that Cobb Vanth definitely feels a little light on accessories. The quantity that he comes with just feels more in line with a regular figure. I can't help but feel a little shortchanged as a collector. I'm not sure if an impressive paint job could pass off as a deluxe price figure. In terms of size, Cobb Vanth stands at just about 6 1/8 of an inch, and that's about 15.5 centimeters. Of course, he's compatible with Mando and Grogu. Here he is also with Grogu in his crib. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my friend Judith, who made this cloth bag for Grogu by hand. I think she did a terrific job, and I just really want to thank her for that. You can go say hi to her on her Instagram account linked in the description below. She does a lot of calligraphy, so you can go check out her account. Here are some other characters from the Mandalorian series for comparison. And here are some troopers, Wrecker and Hunter from the Bad Batch, some G.I. Joe Classified series, and Marvel Legends Iron Man and Ben Reilly Spider-Man. This figure comes in at a higher deluxe price point, and I can't help but feel that he doesn't justify it. More recently, we're also seeing the Star Wars figures now creeping up in price point, just like the Bad Batch Captain Rex and Imperial Crosshair. This Cobb Vanth figure could have also used more pin-ups on his legs to really bring out the attention to detail in the sculpting. However, for what it's worth, this figure has an astounding head sculpt that superbly captures the likeness of Timothy Olyphant. It's phenomenal and so lifelike that it almost feels like a hand-painted custom. The faithful replication of the outfit and accessories does take this to the next level and challenges the standards of import figures. Despite the highest price point, I can recommend this figure because he's a great piece to add to the Mandalorian show lineup, and I'm also a big fan of the show. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel for more toy reviews. Thanks for watching, take care and stay safe.